Hi, and welcome to Journey Forward with Jory Rose, where you will gain insights, tools, and inspiration to get unstuck and live your best life. Jory is a licensed marriage and family therapist with a passion for helping people cultivate awareness and authenticity so they can show up fully in all aspects of their life. And now, here's Jory.
Hi, and welcome back. Thank you so much for continuing to tune into the podcast. And if you're enjoying the tools and want to delve in a little bit deeper and find ways to really integrate these concepts and ideologies and frameworks into your everyday life to be able to create the lasting change and peace and bring in the joy that you've been really wanting to bring in, then I invite you to check out my upcoming retreats. In September, I'm taking a group of women to Marival in Tucson on September 8th through 11th. And in October, taking another group of women to the Marival Resort in Austin, Texas, October 13th through 16th. I have limited spots left, only 4 spots available in each of the locations. So if you want to check out the link in the show notes, but you can also go to my website, joryrose.com, for more info. And today, I'm so excited. My very first interview, yay! And it's such a perfect person to align with my intention of bringing mindful awareness and how to create change that is in alignment with our authenticity and to be able to really be true to ourselves. I'm really excited for you guys to check out the interview with Jessica Scott. I've connected with her through social media. She's a coach for women. She's really doing amazing work, and I hope you guys enjoy the interview.
All right. Hi, I am so excited to welcome my friend Jessica Scott to the show today. Jessica, you're actually my very first interview for my podcast series, so thank you so much for coming on and for joining me, and I can't wait to have a conversation with you because I know you have been on a journey forward for many years. So please introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am so excited to be on here. I know that we've gotten to know each other through our healing and what we offer to the world, and it's been quite the journey. I work with women. I am a life coach for women, but I'm more specialized in not just coaching businesses, so to speak, but I coach a woman on tapping into those places that really I think are neglected in our schooling or maybe how we were parented growing up.
Yes.
I tap into and tune the women that I work with into those areas that really leave the big holes in our life. You know, how do I function? How do I find my own path? How do I listen to myself? How do I age gracefully and be myself in this world? All these things that as I'm 35 now, and I find myself being like, none of these things were ever taught to me. Nothing about being a woman and what that meant.
Yes.
Value-wise, mentality-wise. I mean, I was a check the boxes type of person in school. I was a straight A student. I was pre-med, getting straight A's and doing all these things. And I couldn't have done that any better. And although my education, it was great, and I don't want to, dog on that, there's this whole other world that was never talked about. And so whether you went to school and checked all the boxes or not, I feel there's just this undercurrent in every woman's life of like, why didn't I ever learn about these things? So I guess I just started talking about them and gathering a community that wanted to talk about it too.
And so you clearly tapped into something with so many women that really, really resonated. And for you, you had to have that moment of waking up, that moment of awareness to say, holy shit, I've done everything I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
Why isn't it, quote, working for me? Right? There's some
100%.
Story. Yeah. So there's some story there, or there's some mindset, or there's some expectation that we're doing it all the way we're supposed to, or those damn shoulds. And yet, why aren't I happy? Why aren't I fulfilled? So what was that moment for you when you really realized, wait a second, I'm doing all these things and yet I'm not getting what I feel like I'm supposed to have gotten from it? What was that like for you?
It was kind of like layer upon layer. And I don't think I really truly tapped into the holy shit moment.
Yes.
Until I was in this body after years of doing all this nutrition craze, dieting craze. I was macro tracking and working out. At first, I actually was a health and fitness coach. That's what I started my own business. And I was wildly successful at that. I actually was kind of life coaching the women in my fitness support groups. It wasn't just kind of like, eat this, don't eat this, but I realized there was this undercurrent. There's was
so much more involved.
I'm a mom. I'm in this new body. Now I don't even know who I am anymore. So I became on a kind of like a life coach to the women I was fitness coaching. And after years of this fitness life where I was working out 5 to 6 days a week, I had the perfect Instagram body. And I'm putting quotes around that with my fingers right now for the reader or the listeners that are following along, because I had that quote unquote perfect Instagram body, which like, I don't even know why that is dubbed as the perfect body, but I chased after it like a lot of women do and think that that's going to be the holy grail, like the je ne sais quoi that everyone is looking for.
I'll be happy when, right?
Yes. And I just thought once I got that body, there would be this like sense of worth and I don't even know that I consciously knew. I don't think that I really knew that that's what I was doing, but in hindsight, I was chasing after it for what reasons? I wanted to feel worthy in this new space of being a mom. So I got the body, and if anyone goes on my Instagram, which we'll link, obviously, there's photos there, but I got this body where I had 8-pack abs galore. I had the body. And there was one specific day where I was naked in my own bathroom. I stood in front of the mirror and I was looking at myself, not an ounce of cellulite. I mean, I'm talking, I could have stepped on a competition stage, and this is just the body I walked around in.
Right.
And I literally, Jory, I felt nothing. There wasn't this like joy. There wasn't this elation. There wasn't even like a satisfaction.
Right.
It was just kind of like, I'm shrugging my shoulders right now. Like,
it's like a thought of, okay, so there it is. And now what?
Yes. And so in that moment, I did say, and what else is there? And I think in that moment, this internal guidance kind of perked up in me and said, you are what else? And you aren't your body. So you are what else? And I have goosebumps even saying that, because that was when this unbecoming journey started. To be honest, about 3 or 4 months after this standing in front of the mirror moment, I got to the point where I didn't even want to go to the gym, because I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, I'm done here. Like, I don't even have to work out anymore, because I was doing it for the reasons of looking a certain way.
Right.
Not joyfully moving my body, which is now 1.5 years later, what I do movement for.
Well, and even mindfully moving our bodies, because I feel like so many of us get stuck in this distraction mindset that I'm just doing it because I have to, and I'm not even connecting to the benefit internally or just the sensation or gratitude if I have a body that moves and that I have a body I can use. And wow, look at this amazement of my body.
Yes. So, and I wasn't doing that. I literally only lifted weights. I never explored any alternate forms of movement, because lifting weights manipulates your body in such a way that it changes and augments the shape of your body more readily than like if I went for a hike, right?
Right.
So I always was saying, why would I go for a hike? Why would I go for a walk or a bike ride? Like, that's not going to give me the perfect Instagram body. And having been a former competitor, I totally know calorie manipulation. I know macros. I know how to do it, and I got it. And so 3 to 4 months after I had this moment in my bathroom by myself, I actually stopped working out. And I like to say it was divinely guided.
Yes.
I didn't even know at that time. I just knew I needed a break from taking photos of my abs. And I was more into a transformation that you actually couldn't take a photo of. And so I proceeded to not work out for the next year. And that sounds maybe extreme, but I just couldn't do it anymore. I had to really rest and figure out why I had been doing that.
Well, and it makes me think of the word intention, right? Intention is one of my most favorite words, and I talk about it a lot, especially as a piece of the definition of mindfulness, and to reconnect with that intention of why am I doing what I'm doing?
Yes. And I think that this is the thing for a lot of women. And this is what I connect with too, without even knowing the spiritual side of intention or what that even means. But a lot of women, I think midlife, start saying, why am I doing what I'm doing? I'm just doing what I was told.
Or I just did what was next, or I did what was expected of me. Yes.
100%. So I always joke on my social media lately. I'm like, I just kind of had to lie down for a year. I had to just stop doing all this crazy movement just to move and doing just to do, and all these very masculine behaviors of pushing hard and all this playing and all this stuff, which that has its time and place. But if you're not balancing that with this beautiful knowingness and rest and being mindful, you're just like a machine. And our bodies actually don't work like machines, as you know.
Right. Well, and we get so focused on the doing, we forget about the being.
Yes.
And that's something that, I think, again, in that spirit of who are we in the here and the now, we get so focused on the patterns and don't connect to, but who am I? Who do I want to be? Why? What am I pushing towards? What am I fighting so hard for?
Well, and so I recently have been really posting a lot about in my year-long rest, I actually maintained my lower weight for quite a while, manipulating diet, but I just couldn't do it anymore. I wanted to enjoy ice cream with my daughter. I wanted to go to my mom, who's Sicilian and cooks the most amazing meals. And I always was like, oh, that doesn't fit into my daily macros or whatever. Or even when you get into really disordered eating, which I'm recovering from, truth be told. I mean, I've recently realized, in my past 20 years, there has been a lot of disordered eating to the point of not ever being diagnosed, but eating disorders even.
Yes.
And
even the mind, and part of it is just the mindset, right?
Yeah. And what's sad about it is the norm is disordered eating. We're so inundated with this disordered eating that this is just how we live. And I took that bait, hook, line, and sinker. And so as I've really expanded into intuitive eating and non-restriction and really tuning in, like intuitive eating and trusting ourselves around food fully, not just like follow this diet, because a diet is also something that's prescribed. It's outside of ourselves,
Right.
And our bodies are these beautiful organisms we have so many homeostasis things at work. Like, why do we think that we don't have a satiability, hunger cues, all these things that go into how we are here, but we navigate away from it. Think of an infant, either breastfeeding or breastfeeding. An infant will turn away when it's full, and it will cry when it's hungry. And so it's just been this really beautiful allowing in my life. And so lately I've been really sharing a lot about how I have actually gained 20 pounds, and I'm still in this very thin, privileged body. I like to say I do have thin privilege, because nowhere I go, anyone would ever say anything about how I look. And I've gained 20 pounds, right? And so I really started to think, why was I doing that? For what? Was it for a validation? Did I feel like my worth increased as my size decreased? And not only that, not just a number.
It's an amazing question.
Yeah. And the answer is yes. I felt that if I were to be a size fill in the blank, because we all have that size in our head, right, as women.
Right.
If I were to be a size 4, really was for me, that I would somehow be more worthy. And I recently posted that and shared with my community that in order for me to be a size 4, like I said, I come from Sicilian women. My mom has yo-yo dieted her whole life. My aunts were not small. Like if you were to come to a family gathering of mine, there's not anyone who's just like, oh, Aunt Sally's over there and she's a size 2. Like no one is in these smaller bodies, right? So in order for me with my genetics to be a size 4, it takes exasperation and disordered eating, to be honest. I can do it.
Sure.
But am I having any fun while I'm doing it? Is that living? And I've come to the conclusion that it's not. So now that I've gained these 20 pounds, I was telling my partner, Rick, my boyfriend, I would have thought that I would have had to make a decision. Like I either am in a smaller body and I'm happy about that body and I'm working out so hard for it, but I like my body. Or I'm allowing myself to live and eat and enjoy, but I'm going to hate my body. Those were the options I really thought. It was like, pick one.
Right. It had to be this either or. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Because that's what life is. You can either be a working mom or a loving mom at home. You know, like you can't be both. It's just all these either ors that's just so preposterous. So I was just telling Rick the other day, it's not an either or. I actually am expanding my ability to eat and enjoy and tune in. And I have had to buy bigger pants. I did a whole thing about having to buy a size large. Like I'm in a large stretch pant right now, which is still a normal straight size, right?
Yes.
But I love my body more than I did when I was in that smaller size. I love myself more. I love how I move through this life more. I'm so much less looking in the mirror.
Yes.
I'm so less focused on being an ornament. And in doing that, I'm allowing myself space to be an instrument.
I love that description.
And I don't know why I was so focused on being an ornament for so long.
Well, you know, I think one of the things that's so curious is this question of why. You know, as soon as we get stuck on that, why was I doing this? What was, you know, anytime we ask why, we're back into a cycle of judgment and reactivity. And, you know, it's the awareness to say, oh, look, I notice I'm stuck in this cycle versus asking why. And when you can have that awareness of it, you begin to relate to it differently.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah. And I noticed too in my journey, when I looked back on all these things I was doing, that now I see clearly as disordered behavior, or doing all these things for my worth. The next thing I had to heal after I healed my relationship with my body was to have self-compassion.
Yes.
Because I don't know anyone who wakes up and says, I'm going to do a shitty job today.
Yes.
Even people who are making what the world would believe to be poor choices, no one is really, unless maybe you're a psychopath. But I'm saying like the normal person, like my parents always doing the best. They were doing their best. I was doing my best in that moment. And so as I learned this and saw, like, I just couldn't see it in that moment. And I needed to be taken down that road, that exact road, to learn exactly what was there for me to make the turn.
And that's what's so fascinating about the fact that it is a journey and that you weren't ready until you were ready. And you wouldn't have been ready with all those previous steps not happening.
Right. And so the self-compassion I learned to have with myself really then translated into a lot of self-compassion for others, or compassion for others rather.
Right.
Because I too saw in them, this is just where they're at in their journey.
Right.
And it's become this really beautiful allowing of both myself, my partner, my daughter, my family, people in my business. You know, it's almost really taken so much pressure off, you know. I don't have to have all the answers. No one else has all the
What
answers.
A beautiful gift for that in and of itself.
It really, truly has. And I can't tell you how much more I've enjoyed my life and really just being in this moment. That I had another moment besides the mirror moment, but I was at the pool or the beach. You know,
yes.
As women, this is always a moment where we remember things. But before I started to change and realize, gosh, I was really heavily body centric instead of being soul centric. I had a day where I was at the pool with Scarlett and with Rick, my boyfriend, and the whole day went by and all I did was think about how I looked while I was there.
Mm-hmm.
I
think every woman listening can relate to this. Absolutely.
I wasn't even there. Like, I mean, I was there, but I was thinking about, so instead of living my life, I was thinking about how I was looking while I was living my life.
Right.
And after that day, I was like, holy crap. Like, that was a whole 8 hours. Mm-hmm. And how many times have I done that? And what is that teaching me about where my frame of mind is? You know, how can I actually be mindful and present in this moment instead of...
And especially with your daughter, right? Because we so much as mothers, especially for those of us who have daughters, and I've got 2 daughters myself who are now teenagers. So this becomes almost, for me, feels like a bigger than myself journey, because I now feel responsible to be the role model of my best version of myself for them.
Yes. Yeah. One of my favorite quotes by, I believe, Naomi Wolf, that says, "A mother who shows self-compassion and self-love vaccinates her daughter against low self-esteem."
Oh, I love that.
And I'm like, yes, because if I'm able to show up in every moment with extreme self-compassion and love for myself in all stages, phases, and looks, then what does that show my daughter about how it is to be a woman?
Right. I've watched you on social media for, I think, over a year now, and have really seen, exactly what you've just shared of this transformation of what you're expressing about with your body. And it's so interesting because I'm someone who's had the opposite experience of, I used to be really heavy and overweight. And people look at me now and they say, "You used to be overweight." Like, I just don't see that in me. It's like, well, of course you don't now because I've worked at it. But at my highest weight, and I'm not even 5'2", so I'm pretty petite, but at my highest weight, I was 181. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I was a teenager, and I just thought, I'm getting older, I'm getting bigger. That's just what happens. And I didn't connect with my body. And when I realized, wow, like, I'm actually pretty overweight, and then the insecurities kicked in, it wasn't almost the insecurity of being overweight didn't kick in until I realized I was overweight. Mm-hmm. It was so interesting. I was oblivious to it for a while. And it was almost like that ignorance is bliss. Mm-hmm. And then once I realized it was, quote, a problem, then the insecurities really kicked in. And I ended up going from 181 and over a course of a few years, got down to 109. And I was a size 0 when I got married, and I wasn't happy. Mm-hmm. And I was more unhappy in my own skin than I was at 181.
Yep.
And I have been fighting my weight since. And of course, 109 was not healthy for me. And then, I gained some weight, and that was a sustainable weight for a while. But I have since gained about 12 pounds, and I'm at the high 120s right now. And I have been stuck in that cycle of thinking I'll be happy when. And I've really had to come back to my own practice to accept, wait a second, I weighed almost my lowest at times in my life when I was the highest in my anxiety, when I was the highest in my unhappiness. And I'm basing this mindset of, I want to be a weight when I was my most unhappy.
Yes.
The disconnect is huge. And now I am the happiest I've ever been. I'm the heaviest I've been in a while, and I wouldn't change it.
100%. And I think that more women need to see and hear stories about this, because we are inundated with images where, you're heavier on the left, that's your before photo. And good God, no way could you be happy then. And then you're lean or whatever, and you got the world by the balls, so to speak.
Right.
And I just think it was following people who had previously been into fitness, and then they gained weight, and their health problems, hormones, and all these things stabilized, and they were actually able to live a life. I just made a post the other day saying, the things I had to give up to be that lean were the most healing emotional things, emotionally healthy things for me, like eating ice cream on the couch with my partner at night this relationship that I've been in for almost 3 years is so healthy for me. He is so a space holder. He's amazing. And to be able to learn vulnerability and learn these things in my life and to share food and have these intimate times, that's not unhealthy.
No.
So if we're just if we're just being mechanical and saying, must eat healthy food, broccoli, chicken, rice, work out, chicken, rice, work out.
What a bland life.
It really is. And I did that and I thought it would bring something that it just didn't. And in order to be that low weight, I had to knock out all the things that bring me joy in an emotional way, right? Connecting with humans, really sharing ice cream with my daughter just because, and the joy of that. So I started doing this thing where I say, when I'm 80 years old, at the end of my life, am I going to say, you know what? I was thin. Mm-hmm. I really did it. I really, and because that's laughable, and I don't think that the majority of people would say that's what they'll feel, I tend to go there and say, what will I be proud of or be reminiscing about? It's going to be the ice cream with my daughter 100%.
Those are the memories.
It's going to be the times where I say, oh my gosh, remember when Scarlett was 5 and we'd put her to bed at 8:30 and we'd have a good 2 hours of watching HGTV and having ice cream. And that was when we had just been together for 2 years and we were so young and building trust. And I mean, it almost makes me emotional because like that 15 pounds, that's our life.
Yes.
That's our life. And to take that away to be a smaller weight for what? It just doesn't compute anymore. So,
and I can hear the emotion in your voice just as you're saying that it's given you such a gift of connection and presence and such peace.
It truly has. So any woman listening, thinking that, you'll be happy when or worthy when, it's just not going to be always out there in the future. It's nothing you have to run after,
Yeah. So for those who are listening, if there was just the one place to start, what would you say that from what you have seen in the women you coach and in observing your own journey because I think women feel so lost of, wow, great for her. She can do that. I can't do that. And I see a lot of that self-doubt come up and get stuck in our own way. So what would you, tell your clients or any of the women who are listening, where would be the one place that would be a good place to start in helping make this shift?
A few things, depending on the resources that they love to access, whether it's books or courses. One of the defining things in my life was when I ran into a couple concepts, intuitive eating. There's actually a book written. A lot of people think that intuitive eating is just, I'll just feel my way through it. No, there's a book that is mind-blowing and it's beautifully written and gets you in touch with yourself if you're interested in that. The other one is a book by Linda Bacon and it's called Health at Every Size. And it talks about how health isn't a certain size and it brings up all this research and data, and it's beautiful to even follow that hashtag on Instagram, HAES.
Okay.
There's a lot of beautiful information. And besides that, I do run a course. It's called Journey of Your Soul. And this really starts to get you tuned into yourself. A lot of courses that I've taken in the past, I feel like I need to subscribe to someone else's system or their belief or, Jory, you tell me how to be me. And
right.
In this course, and I have always been turned off by that. And in this course, I talk about how I don't have a manual on you. And because I don't, neither does anyone else, right? And so you get to create it. And so all these like people-pleasing behaviors or things that we do because we think will be worthy then, we actually get to have the ultimate say. So when we distance ourselves from all these parameters, it really becomes this beautiful blossoming of who we're here to be instead of checking boxes of what we should be.
Yeah, I love that. And, I'm going to add to that just as I can relate so much to what you've been sharing. So thank you for sharing your story. One of the things that I want to add for our listeners is one of the ways that I have begun to make this shift for me into that greater self-acceptance of where my body's at right now is I focus on my higher value, right? Because if I'm focusing on losing the 5 pounds, then I'm going to stay in that judgment mindset. I'm going to see the cookie. I'm going to have the cookie. I'm going to judge myself for it. I'm not going to have enjoyed it. And then I stay focused in that problem cycle, and it becomes that reactivity. But if my value is happiness, and my value is peace, or my value is health, or my value is feeling good in my own skin, then I can make the choice about the cookie from a different mindset, right? I'm not problem focused, I'm value focused. And if my value is in that moment to enjoy the people I'm with, then that cookie doesn't have a judgment.
Yes. And that's what I love about this intuitive eating is there's no such thing as health foods or unhealthy foods or good foods or bad foods. It's all just food. And
Yes.
to be honest, I had been dieting for so long that when I started to learn these concepts, I went off the deep end. I think I had a Rip Your Float every day for like 2 or 3 weeks. And then I think I had a tuna melt every day.
Oh, that sounds so good.
But you know what? Now that I've settled into, I can have anything I want at any time. And I have this innate ability to trust myself, both with food and in every area of my life. My life has expanded in such a way that no diet would ever be able to like give that to me.
Yes. I have one more question / comment. I'm a huge believer in the mind-body connection.
Mm-hmm.
I think it shows up more than we even are aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And I recently have begun to shift how I view certain foods. And I really believe that when I stopped looking at it as a bad food, as I'm saying in my air quotes, it hasn't affected my body as negatively.
Right. So the mind-body connection, there's a lot of energy behind what
Yes.
we do. So if we're judging,
Yes.
when we're judging everything, and if I'm eating my salad, my healthy salad, and the person next to me is eating a brownie, and I'm going that, oh God, what an unhealthy SOB or whatever, then what am I, if we could see energy, or if you believe in energy, what form is that taking on in my body?
Absolutely.
We just can't simply think that it's just, I'm just going to eat the salad and be pissed off about it.
Yes.
There's so much to be said about being mindful about how are we feeling. And this is where, when I gave up the judgment of how I'm eating, if I want to have a Rip Your Float every day for 2 weeks, then I do. And I love myself the same.
Yes.
And if I have to buy a larger pant size, and I love myself the same, it has changed the game. And so,
I love it.
yes, I totally believe that how you feel about a certain food, when we're unable to digest life or thoughts, we're really unable to digest food too.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I think we could talk for hours and hours. And I think at some point I'm going to have you back on, because I also observe a lot in your social media of your relationship with your daughter and your practice of what I would call as one of the ways of really being a mindful parent and really being present with her. So we'll have to have another discussion at another time, because again, I think these are topics that so many women need to learn the tools from and need to see examples of what it looks like in practice rather than in theory. And it's been really beautiful to have connected with you on social media and to observe what that journey looks like in action. So how can people find you? How can people, if they want to take one of your courses, where can they find you?
So my course is journeyofyoursoulcourse.com. That's linked in the bio in my Instagram, which is Jessica Scott. I actually have the name Jessica Scott. It's so common, but that's my Instagram. And then I actually, in a month and a half, I'm launching a parenting course. It's so funny you brought up parenting.
Oh, fabulous.
And it's called Parenting in 528. And that's the hertz. That's like the measurement, the frequency of love, actually.
Oh.
So when you're parenting in the frequency of love, this is going to be covering the old paradigm of parenting, going into healing how you were parented even, talking about boundary setting and how you can set boundaries out of love. And we don't have to be doormats, but really being conscious to how we're showing up both for ourselves and for our family. And so I've never run a parenting course, but people have been asking me on social media for probably about 4 years. So it's time.
It's
so
time.
about a month and a half. Yeah.
All right. Well, I cannot wait to observe what you bring into the world, because I know so many women definitely are going to resonate with all of that. Thank you so much for coming on today. And I really look forward to continuing our conversation at some point, because like I said, I think you and I could talk for hours, as I know we've had previous conversations in the past. When there's just alignment with women, it feels so connecting. And I know that's something that we both care a lot about. So thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate your time today, Jessica.
Thanks for having me, Jory.
All right. Take care, everyone. We'll catch you next time.
To continue your journey forward, find Jory Rose on Facebook and Instagram to become part of her growing community. You can also gain access to her meditations, books, online classes, or to sign up for an upcoming retreat. Visit her at joryrose.com. That's JOREEROSE.com.